your boy Howler. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. I do hope that your New Year's Eve and your New Year was off to a fantastic start. Um, it is an interesting start for me, to say the least. As with most people, we start the new year with a bit of introspection, a bit of looking back at the previous year and kind of taking stock of what we've achieved or the resolutions we didn't, achieve and what have you. And I figure it would be a perfect time for me to um, reintroduce myself for the new year. It'd be a perfect time for me to talk about some of the things that I wanted to try and do this year. Um, without holding myself to some unrealistic expectation because life does happen. We do often make plans, but as Mike Tyson once said, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So if you are here with me this evening, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming to hang out. I'm going to be practicing some thumbnails and going over some things. As you can see, there's definitely some things in here that um, was not in the sketchbook the last time that I was here. But before I jump into that, I actually wanted to just kind of talk for a bit and kind of go over this little thing I'd written up and I talked about a little bit um, with myself and with my wife and whatnot. And one of those things was this idea that I have for field marginalia. This idea of every time I get on stream, taking like the first 10, 15 minutes and just kind of talking through um, some things that I've been thinking about. And because this is the start of a new year, I definitely wanted to talk about something that's kind of been rolling around in my head for about the past 5 years or so. And that is the feeling of picking up a tool and not being worthy of creating, whether it's a paintbrush, whether it's a pen, whether it's, some clay and sculpting tools, whether it's a new digital setup, um, or, filling behind the eight ball in life or in your work. And if you've ever been in that space, you kind of know where I'm going to be going with this. You kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about already. Um, Maybe. Um, and I've lived many lives in my existence. I've been a janitor. I've been in the military. I've been corporate drone. I've been a bartender. Um, and those have all kind of led to sort of where I am today. Um, I'm Howler, not because I am some prophet or I'm somebody who I think people should look to for any level of guruism, but more so because I have this thing inside my chest that refuses to quiet itself. Um, it refuses to just lay there to rest. And I think the main thing about this thought process for me is something that I think we tell a lot of young artists. And the thing that we usually tell a lot of young artists is that, it's a lie, it's a myth, it's a platitude. Um, but you gotta go out and live life, right? And on this New Year's, as I come into 2026, I kind of realize that there's this friction, there's this rub that I have with it. And the rub that I have with it is kind of funny because I'm almost a third of the way through my life at this point. Um, my birthday's gonna be coming up soon, uh, which I'm kind of geeking over a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm kind of geeking over it a little bit, and I think the reason is because I kind of have sort of this level of understanding now that I didn't have before, not just with like my craft, but clarity in terms of like, oh, all those lives that I lived, they felt like wasted time. Like over the past 5 years, I've been sort of in this space of like really, really contentious, um, self reflection and introspection. And that contentious self reflection and introspection has kind of led me to this thought process of like, oh man, I've wasted a lot of time. And on one hand, on one hand, time is like all those things I could look at as tuition, you know, for lessons that I needed to learn, or lessons that I didn't know I was paying for yet. And on the other hand, if I'm being honest with myself, that's just cope. Like that's real deal cope. Um, and I think oftentimes that's one of the things that we do with as people. We'll tell ourselves, we'll rationalize the wasted time and the wasted effort. It's like, mm, is it true? Yes. Is it is it as honest as I could be? No. The truth is, it was mostly avoidance. And what I mean by that is like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to spend my days doing this, drawing. And I bought this sketchbook, what, just before, um, just before the start of, or just at the end of November. And I'm almost done with it. I think this is the fastest I've ever filled up any sketchbook that I've ever owned. Um, and I think that's because I've had nothing but time to just kind of sit down and kind of think. I've had nothing but time to just really ask myself the question of like, okay, well, what is it that you really wanted to do? Truly. Um, and the cope of avoiding everything, like I went to the military, straight out of high school. My old man told me, hey man, like I feel like the military would be good for you. It'll teach you discipline. Do I feel like it taught me discipline? Absolutely the fuck not. Um, and then coming out of of the military, I jumped into doing other things. And it's not like they're bad things, right? Like they're not bad things because I was still doing things that were fun, in a lot of ways. I was still doing things that were very much in line with like seeking novelty and seeking like experience, laying into leaning into the idea that, oh, I need to go out and live life. Then I don't have the right to be an artist. I don't have the right to draw. I don't have the right to spend my days doing art. As if there's some type of reward system for being an artist, right? Like as if the reward system for art is having an adventurous life, which saying it out loud, saying it publicly is like, oh, that's fucking ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous. Who said that, man? I don't remember anybody telling me that, like, that was true, that part of it, but that's how I treated it. Um, and, it's not any fault of anyone else's but my own in all reality. But, kinda coming to that place and coming to that realization, like, "Oh, wait a minute. I could, you know, do the cope thing. I could say, oh, yeah, I, uh, I learned a lot, and I had this, this, I learned so many things, and I got to experience so many things, and they, you know, feed into my art, and they feed into my experience and my storytelling, and da 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 da, blah, 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 blah. Platitudes, man, platitudes. Just lies to make yourself feel better in all reality. Um, and I think the thing that sort of like really hit the nail on the head for me, the thing that really made me go, "Oh, I gotta I gotta be true. I gotta do something that feeds my soul. I have to," was love of all things. Um, the greatest cage, the most noble cage that we have as human beings is love. Um, I had a son, and I got married. And one of the things that we as people will do is we will justify the abandonment of ourselves, the abandonment of our dreams, the abandonment of the things that make us, that really cause us to be the best versions of ourselves. And we'll abandon it. We'll say, that's not the responsible thing to do, you know? And in some ways, right? Like in some ways, that's true. In some ways, if you sacrifice your family to the altar of ambition, you have no family at the end of the day, right? But, and this is the part where like there's the platitude, and there's the truth in the platitude, and then there's the lie in the platitude, right? And the truth is, experience does feed your creativity in a lot of ways. And that isn't the formula to being an artist. That's not that's not it at all. The thing that, if you don't decide, hey, I'm gonna do the deep work. I'm going to um I'm going to not sacrifice my time in my work, but not fully give myself over to that. I will honor my work in just the same way that I honor my family, in just the same way that I honor everything else. Then these two things can coexist at the same time, right? Um, but oftentimes we make it a binary choice. We make it must either be this or it must be that. And I'm slowly, like I said, there's still lessons that I'm learning, right? So like the platitude of, hey, oh, it was just lessons. Like, yes, I'm still learning a lot of these lessons. I am no guru. I am no person to tell you exactly what the the best method is. I can only tell you, you know, I can only tell you what I believe. I can't tell you what's best for you, or whatever the case may be. But I can tell you this, that if you deny the compulsion, if you deny the thing that calls to you, if you allow yourself to quote unquote sacrifice for the sake of family, for the sake of your loved ones, without ever attending to your own well-being, spiritual, mental, you know, creatively, any of that stuff. If you don't spend the time to attend to that, unfortunately, the price of it is resentment. It is the anchor of resentment. And the thing about the anchor is this: you might not drown. You might not drown today. You might not drown tomorrow. But if you allow it, and if you don't do the deep work, if you don't make the choice, you will find the entire ship sinking, and you won't understand why. This stuff here, this art thing for me is like its own weird introspective therapy, its own weird um sense of clarity. It helps me think. It challenges me. Oh my God, does it challenge me? Um, and without that, I said this to my dad the other day. Without it, I would be one mean son of a bitch. God, would I be one mean son of a bitch? Um, because I can recognize it. I recognize like, oh yeah, if I don't get time to create, I get really, really cranky. And it's it's mind-boggling to me to think that we often tell people this. We often tell people that, hey, go live a life worth living, or go live a life worth telling for storytellers. Oh, you got to go experience what it's like to do this thing for artists. Oh, you've never been skydiving and you want to draw people that fly? Here's a great thought experiment. Do you think that the first people who drew Superman ever went skydiving? Like, just sit with that for a second. Like, did they ever go skydiving? Would they know what it's like to fly? But they drew Superman flying, jumping tall buildings, running at the speed of sound. Did they know what that felt like? So I know, and I can tell you that art does not require experience. You don't need to live anything. It doesn't require you to be this adventurous soul who's done all these crazy, amazing things with themselves. No, no. Art, art requires attentiveness, attention. It requires attention first and foremost to the craft. It requires attention to yourself. And above all else, it requires attention to the mundane. And in 2026, as we find ourselves surrounded by craziness, by AI, by billionaires taking people's money, this crazy transfer of wealth, the greatest we've seen in, all of history. Be attentive. Attend to your life. Beat on your craft, whatever that craft may be. Beat on it. Beat on it until you can't beat on it anymore. Think about yourself. Think about what drives you. Think about the things that you love, the people you love. Think about what you want to be remembered for, how you want to be remembered. Not just what you want to be remembered for, but how. Because you could be remembered as one of the greatest thinkers of a generation, but people might still think you were an asshole. Steve Jobs is a great example of that. One of the most innovative minds in the last 50 years. Without him, there would be no iPod. Without him, there would be no Apple. And yet, the people around him that helped him create these things were like, I mean, yeah, but he took all the credit. He was an asshole. So, in the public eye, in the public sphere, sure. But sooner or later, the truth comes out, and you become known for that truth. And then lastly, attention to the mundane. What is attention to the mundane? What is it that we as artists do? We as artists, as creatives, as writers, as poets, we do what other people wish they could do every single day. We stop and we smell the roses. That's it. This is something that I'm learning from my son, of all things. I'm learning how to stop and just smell the roses, man. Because he's so fascinated by like cracks in the ground. He notices ants everywhere. He notices the the way that a blade of grass is different from another. He notices the shapes of clouds in ways that I have forgotten how to do. God, it is so mind-boggling to see the world through the eyes of a child. It is humbling. It is so humbling because it's like, oh man, that's that's what I that's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to live my life in that space. I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to be a comic book writer. I wanted to be everything and anything that was created. So if I know nothing, I know that. I know that the requirements for art do not require any level of experience. You don't got to go out and live some extraordinary life. Far from it. Far from it. You just need to live an attentive life. And, they'll tell you. They'll tell you otherwise. Everyone will tell you otherwise. There'll be people in the world who will disagree that unless you have some level of experience, unless you've done some level of research, then, all that means nothing. To some degree, they're not wrong, because experience, once it is had, can only be parsed after the fact. As they say, hindsight is 2020. And the hindsight of experience, I think, is the thing that the platitude is really about. That's what the saying of like, go out and live a life. Go out and live a life and live one worth telling. Go, out and experience things so that you can have things to draw. That's where it comes from. It comes from the 2020 hindsight of being able to look back on it and pull some aspect of it, some emotion from it, something from it that you either forgot or you want to remember, you want to highlight. At least that's my thought process on it. That's what I think. Um, and when I think about that from like a long timeline for standpoint, attending to life, you know, attending to your existence in such a way, it's not easy, man. It's not easy at all. I think that's the thing that's the hardest part about it. Because as I said, I avoided it for a long time. I avoided it for such a long time. I avoided it for the nobility of sacrifice. I avoided it for the nobility of experience. And I had to ask myself, when obligation comes knocking, and to say obligation comes knocking is kind of, you know, in and of itself, not true. Because obligation doesn't knock. It kicks down the door and tells you to put your hands up. Give me all your lunch money. Um, but it always, because you have no choice in the matter. It's obligation. If you want to be, if you want to do right by those you love, if you want to do right by yourself, you should attend to your obligations. But in that, in attending to that, there's always something in the back of your head. Always. Always something that is screaming, I would rather be doing this. That's the thing I'd rather be doing right this instant. And that thing, that thought process, that's where the deep work is. That's where what you should be doing, what the thing you ought to be doing is. That's the thing that challenges you. That's the thing that no matter how challenging it gets, you still want to get better at it for some reason. Um, no matter if you were getting paid for it, you'd probably still do it. That's what that thing is. And once you realize that, once you realize like, oh man, the thing that quote unquote brings me life, the thing that brings me joy, fulfillment in a lot of ways is this thing that I have no guarantees on. I don't have any guarantees that I'm going to be successful at it. I have no guarantees that people will like what I do. I have no guarantees that um, it's even worth it, but I still do it. Huh. That's it right there. That's your message. That's your body and your soul telling you something. At least I would like to think so. And novelty, like novelty, experience, the go out and live, that shit is vast. That shit is so very far flung. I call it the sea of novelty, the vastness of novelty, right? Of potential, of possibility. It's intoxicating. It is so intoxicating to just kind of drift. because it's so much easier, right? It's so much easier to drift without direction. It's so much easier. Um, it's so much easier to avoid deep work and to instead choose wide breadth of work because you don't need to do a lot to drift. You don't need to do shit in order to drift. That's the funny part. It doesn't require work to drift. Um, it doesn't require anything to drift on the ocean. Let the current take you. And at some point, you know, when you're drifting and you're out there and you're looking about, you're like, oh, this is nice. This is great. This is fantastic. Yeah. Until it's not. Until you're looking around and there are people who are relying on you, looking to you for direction. There are people who need you and you have no skill set that you feel confident enough in to be able to sway their fears. When that happens, that's when drifting becomes terrifying. That's when it becomes something that you're like, oh, I I need to do something else. I need to figure this shit out. And oftentimes we choose sacrifice. We choose the closest bit of land that we see and we drop our anchor. But that anchor is usually the anchor of resentment. It's not one that's deliberate. And because it's not deliberate, because it's not a choice that we made ourselves, but a choice that was made out of desperation and necessity, we later end up taking that same resentment out on the same people that we love and care about. And that to me, that that is unacceptable. That's not something I could do. I won't allow myself to do it. So, this 2026, I am choosing the deep work. I'm choosing the thing that keeps calling my name in the dead of night, the thing that keeps howling at me, regardless of what time of day it is, regardless of what I'm doing, thing I'm constantly thinking about. I'm choosing it. And as I choose it, I refuse to sacrifice my family to the altar of ambition. I refuse to allow myself to be to be cowed by fear. I refuse to not attend to my life. I will attend to the mundane in all of its glory. Because oftentimes I think that we believe that a mundane life isn't worth it. And the wild thing is, man, the wildest thing to me is this. Even kings, presidents, people who have billions and millions of dollars, they look at their life as if it's mundane because they wake up in it every single day. So attend to the mundane this 2026. If nothing else, that's the challenge that I have for myself. And hopefully, if you are here with me, you are listening, hopefully you will do the same. You will begin to attend to the mundane in your own life and find the things that bring you that joy. You'll find the things that make you make you sing, make you proud, that challenge you, that keep challenging you. Because the only way to free yourself and stop the ship from sinking is to cut the ropes that are tied to the anchor of resentment. If you find yourself on the same path that I was on, and you find yourself mulling something over for years at a time, and you find yourself resenting the titles that you have and the things that you have to do day in and day out, then I implore you, implore you to do the deep work. Dive into the depths because depth, that is the thing, and that is where the anchor resides, in depth, not in breadth, not in width, not in novelty, but in depth of work. So, with that, I will end my little ramble there, and hopefully, that helps with kind of figuring out the kind of work that I'll be doing here in at the Bone Brew over this next 2026. Um, and a little bit abstract, I think, in some cases, but I do think it's important to at the beginning of the year, especially because my birthday's coming up. Every year around my birthday, I do this thing where I spend my birthday by myself. I actually never like the day of my birthday. So the day before my birthday, the days after my birthday, I spend with family, I spend with friends, whatever have you. But I started doing this thing about like maybe a year or two before my wife and I got together, where I just started spending my birthday by myself, the day of my birthday. And I would spend it either writing. I do this thing where I watched Randy Pausch's last lecture on YouTube. I watched that every year for since I was in like high school. Um, at different times, but I've made it a point of watching it during my birthday. Over the past 5 or 6 years now. And actually, it's longer than that, but neither here nor there. And I do that to kind of get my mind right, to kind of ready myself for the year. And this year, instead of wanting to make sure that I kicked off my year, not with resolutions, because I don't believe in resolutions. That's one thing I do not believe in. I don't believe in resolutions. I think that instead, refusals are far more potent. I think that decisions are far more valuable. And you take that how you will, and whatever way you understand that for yourself. Um, but this 2026, that is that is my refusal. That is my decision. I refuse to be trapped and drowned by the anchors of resentment, but instead, I am deciding I am deciding to instead do the deep work. Because only in deep work do you find mastery. Only in deep work do you find um, the skill forge. You know, I think that might be that might be a copyrighted phrase. Now that I done said it, but it's true. Like skills are only developed through deep work, through pressure, through fire, through through long repetition, doing the same thing day in and day out. And I used to hate doing that. I used to hate doing the same thing over and over again. And now I think about it, I'm like, I mean, I ain't got nothing else better to do. I'm only getting older. So what's the worst that could happen? Um, Me and my family aren't gonna be like we aren't in a position where everything is, copacetic and I have like this great, life where I can buy what I want, go where I want, like, and do all these fun things. But at the same time, on my fixed income, we're fairly stable. Like if a big accident happened, then we'd be shit out of luck, like most people in the United States. But for the most part, we're fairly stable. So what's the worst that can happen? By me doing deep work, by me taking the time to really develop my skills. So that's what I'm doing this 2026. I'm going to use my Substack. I'm going to use these live streams to hone my craft, both as a visual storyteller and as a storyteller as a whole, um, both orally and written. So welcome to the Bone Brew. I am the Howler, and again, not because I'm some prophet, not because I'm some guru. I'm still a man just on the road. I only speak from the road. I don't speak from the mountaintop. I refuse to speak from the mountaintop because I don't know it all. I know a few things though. And those things I hope to share.